Hello and welcome to I Got a Guy podcast. I'm your host, Michael Drelichars. I'm coming to you just ahead of the actual podcast to let you know that while we have an awesome guest this week with a very impressive background, the audio captured during the recording, well, it's not perfect. The content, however, is important, especially given the critical event that occurred in our country recently. I did not want to delay delivering this content to you, so I want to ask that you please listen past the sections where the audio fades slightly. I am confident you'll enjoy the episode, appreciate the talents of our guest, and his service to our country. And I'll thank you in advance for your attention to this important episode, and hope you enjoy the discussion. Welcome to I Got a Guy podcast, a podcast carefully designed to introduce a wide range of very talented and highly skilled professionals ready to share their knowledge and advice with you. Please welcome the host of I Got a Guy podcast, Michael Drelichars. Welcome to I Got a Guy podcast. I'm your host, Michael Drelichars. Thank you so much for joining us yet again. We have so many awesome subscribers, and we really appreciate your loyalty. And I know that you're coming back to us not because of me, but you're coming back because of the content we're sharing every week. So I'm thankful for that, and I'm thankful that I have some amazing guests lined up historically and in the future here. So keep coming back every week, and you'll see what else we have to offer. If you're new to I Got a Guy podcast, you can go to our website at igotaguypodcast.com. You'll see a list of all of our episodes, and you can pick and choose which episodes you want to listen to, and you can listen to them on a wide variety of audio platforms, but you can also watch them on YouTube and Rumble. So you can watch our podcast if that's any better for you or more preferred. So we're trying to be available to all sorts of folks and interests. If you're interested in being a guest on I Got a Guy podcast, when you go to our website, there is a contact us page. Just let it pop up, and you can fill a little information in there about your business, and we'd love to have you on and share your story. Because every business owner's got a story, and it's awesome. I love listening to the stories, and I know our listeners do too. So love to have you participate. As everyone knows, this show is really born out of the book called The Go-Giver, written by Bob Burg. And The Go-Giver is all about networking for small businesses, and that really is the foundation for really most every small business. You have to network in order to build your business, get your name out there, and you use your referral partners as an extension of your sales force. However, the misnomer right now is that referral networking is all about getting referrals, but the reality is it's all about giving referrals. And the more you give, the more you gain in return. But you have to focus on giving referrals. And that's what this book really highlights. And in the book, there are 5 laws of stratospheric success. And so, I like to recap these throughout the episodes. And the law that pertains to our guest this week is the law of authenticity. The law of authenticity is defined by the most valuable gift you have to give is yourself. The most valuable gift you have to give is yourself. And as you get to know our guest, not only in his current business, but also his history, his past, you'll really get to appreciate how authentic he really is. So I'm excited to have him on our show this week. I've known Adam here for a few years, and I know his father really well, and I'm happy to have him here. And so allow me to introduce Adam Metcalf from Open Arms Instructions. Adam, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
What an opportunity to be able to speak to you and to all your viewers and your listeners out there. This is pretty cool. And if I do sound familiar or look familiar, depending on how you're taking the podcast in, my dad, Bill, was on 2 episodes previously talking about financial planning. A recent one, I think, was in August. It was called 65 and Counting. And I know, Mike, I've said it before, but if you ever have an open week or something, get him on for some ironworking stories from back in the day, because that is an action movie at 1,000 feet. And the stuff's all real. And I get nervous getting on the roof of my house. So the stuff they did over 90 seconds, 92 floors up over Wacker Drive is bonkers. I think we really touched all your Chicagoland area and New Yorkers.
Yeah, that's a good idea, because he has told me those stories, and when he tells the stories, my stomach churns, because
it should.
I'm okay on the first level of my house. with so much trepidation.
That's the
Don't
appropriate
go on the second.
reaction, Mike, is to what
Yeah,
you
yeah,
say.
yeah. I don't
But
get on
no,
the second
thank
level,
you.
and so anyway. But anyway, yeah, I will get him on a podcast just to talk about his history and kind of get a little
That's all.
lesson there because it is pretty amazing. But let's talk about open arms and about your background, Adam.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know if I'm from the first, second generation guest on your show, but I started, my name's Adam Metcalf. I started open arms instruction events 5 years ago, and I'm in Northern Virginia. I'm looking out the window at the Air Force Memorial, the Pentagon, and the Iwo Jima right now, so right outside D.C. And the mission of Open Arms is to help responsible individuals and groups on their competitive or shooting or self-defense journey. It's a journey that I'm on myself. It could be firearm safety, it could be competition, personal protection. I train law enforcement agencies. And it came from, I'm a law enforcement agent. I just retired. I'll tell you about that in a second. But I had been shooting when I was an Air Force officer, and I was a competitor for about 15 years. And getting no better. In fact, perfecting being mediocre. I was super good at it, and I was going nowhere. And it took me a long time, even with a lot of training, a lot of practice, to realize I didn't know how to get better. And so once I saw that, that was about 15 years ago, I started to think about, okay, how do we do this? And my mission of Open Arms is to, for people that are responsible and interested, shorten their journey so that they don't have to wait 15 years. And they don't have to do all these things to figure these things out. Because a lot of it, we can give it to them up front. And it's been very successful in doing that. I usually train in the D.C. area, which is mostly Virginia, a little bit in West Virginia. I'm headed out there this weekend. But I've trained in Cleveland, I've trained in Chicago. I'll talk to you about that a little later. And then also in Iowa. So I might be doing a thing in Arizona next year. So I'm trying to expand my horizon now that I've got more time. My students, men and women, all different backgrounds, age minimum 18 to even in their 70s. And if they're legally able to and they're mentally responsible enough to handle a firearm, they're welcome. I've got a buddy that's 85, and he didn't go this last weekend because it rained out, but he's won his rifle competition a couple times in the last year against some serious competition. So it just shows if a person is looking for advanced training, a regular person looking for safety or defense, all kinds of people just want to enjoy a sport like any other. There's room for them at Open Arms.
Sure. That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, it's I assume that a lot of your viewers and listeners are from the Chicagoland area. I guess I'm not sure. I grew up in Palatine.
Yeah, a good portion of them are. I can't tell from the analytics exactly where they're coming from, but a good portion are from the Chicago area because that's where our customer base, our guests are based in this area. So yeah.
Yeah. So I grew up in Palatine, on the northwest suburbs. The family has migrated even further out in Algonquin, so they're making the journey further out there. Basically, my dad and his dad worked on One Penn Plaza in New York. It's right on top of Madison Square Garden. Went up at the same time as the World Trade Centers, and when they were wrapping that up, American Bridge was putting together the plans for the Sears Tower, and he said it's kind of like the Super Bowl. They're putting the A-team together, and they approached him as a connector, the person at the top of the building that brings in the steel and rivets it and keeps going. They said, "You want to do this?" They said, "You're building the tallest building in the world. We got to go." And so the family came here before my brother was alive, before I was born, and we stayed. Palatine was a great place to grow up, and it was a great place for a family. So that's still home always for me. I did move somewhere warmer. I went to Arizona State University. So there's a place where it doesn't snow for 8 months. So tell me about this. Let's check this out. And it can get up to 117 degrees, but I really enjoyed it. After that, I went there on an Air Force ROTC scholarship, which I was lucky to get. They paid for my schooling, and it was something I'd always wanted to do. I went on active duty as an officer. I did go to pilot training. It turns out that landing the plane is super important in the grading scale. And if you keep getting sick, that also detracts from the experience. I said, you know what, Tim Metcalf, let's find you a different thing to do in our Air Force, which is one of the great things. And I think with all the solopreneurs on the call, it is a true example of the government that if you fail out of something in the military, you still work there. They just put you somewhere else. And I was lucky enough to go out as an air battle manager, great title, it looks good on the resume, which is an officer on board the AWACS. It's the radar plane. It's got a big dome with a white stripe on a black dome. And we were basically like offensive coordinators at football game. We had a radar and radios. We could see and talk real far. And we would tell the fighters kind of what formations they were facing and stuff like that. And it was flying after the 1,300 hours. It was tactical combat. We were, at the time, the du jour of the 90s was the no-fly zones over Iraq. The United Nations had said to Saddam Hussein, hey, you can't fly in these spots because you keep hurting your own people or attacking your neighbors. So it really was. It was a busy time. We deployed a couple hundred days a year. I think 220 was the average, and out of 365. That adds up when you're coming and going overseas.
Most definitely.
And I did that for 4 years, and then at the end of my Air Force time, I was in for 7 years, became an instructor. And it wasn't something I was super interested in. I wasn't ready to leave the Air Force. I had somewhere else to go, but I wasn't ready to do it yet. And we had to have one more assignment. I was at the end of the movie, so I go back to the schoolhouse, which is in Panama City, Florida, up in the Panhandle. And I got to tell you, going there changed the trajectory of who I was because, and this is for all of you out there, I think a lot of people that have their own companies or are small companies, you teach a lot, right? Because you have to do it yourself. There's no one to hand it to. You teach yourself the IT, the phone, the marketing, the whole thing. And you really know something when you show it to somebody else. Mm-hmm. Because there are great athletes out there that are terrible coaches or terrible broadcasters, right? But then there's some people that not only do they have it, but they can tell you about it. And that changed me. Because that really took me from, okay, I thought I knew what I was doing, to do I really? Well, let me say it to a room full of young, oh, geez, I don't know if I got this. And we were a very professional group, and the skills they gave me there carried forth and really programmed who I am professionally today, circling back at the end of my law enforcement career to become a full-time instructor again. Really interesting to see that mindset and how it stuck with me. So in 2002, beginning of 2003, I guess, I left the Air Force after 7 years. We moved up to Northern Virginia, which is, again, I said, I'm looking at the Pentagon. I can actually see the part of the Pentagon that had been attacked on September 11th from where I'm standing. And that was the section that my team worked in. It was closed for the time, but they had been moved over to it when they rebuilt the building. And it was obviously a crazy time. I worked for the Army staff. They hired me because I spoke Air Force. And I didn't speak Army, so that was really interesting. But the soldiers were a great group, and it was a great 2 years. And during that 2 years, I had started the application to be a Secret Service agent before I left the Air Force. And it's something I wanted to do my whole life. And the Air Force was, to me, service was duty and to help the country. And I said, okay, I'm going to get out and I'm going to go do this crazy job from the movies. And some of it's true. And so the process took 22 months. That number rings a bell. I think they lost my file at headquarters. It was under a wobbly desk, and it made the desk not wobble, so they just left it down there. And, so I called to check in one time, and they said, oh, yeah, you're all set. Come in tomorrow, off you go. And it began this incredible journey where I was a 20-year federal agent. I did 9 years of the Secret Service, 5 years of the Department of Justice, and I actually just retired from you. And you're about to hear this correctly, so I just want to help everyone at home. The United States Postal Service Office of the Inspector General, which is the agency that does fraud, waste, and abuse on federal agents, full federal agents, for employees of the Postal Service, of which there are only 600,000. So there's a lot of work to do because the vast majority of them are good people, and you need a really small percentage to have a lot of business for what we call the OIG. So the career was fantastic. Obviously, we're taping this 2 weeks or, well, I guess about 8 or 9 days after the attempted assassination on former President Trump. In fact, the director of the Secret Service, I may have met her agents, so I don't know. She wouldn't remember me. Is testifying before Congress right before I turn this on. It's a great agency. It is the mission, everything about it is a paradox. And I think especially to people that run businesses, because the original mission, still to this day of the Secret Service, was counterfeit investigation, counterfeit currency. And people are like, what are you talking about? So it was 1865, it was after the Civil War, and between a third and a half of all currency in circulation was fake. because you had state banks, the Confederacy printed their own money, Union money to try to fund the war effort. So you had all of these fake bills, and it's crushing the post-war economy. So President Lincoln, right before he died, last thing, official thing he did was to sign the legislation creating Secret Service from what was called the Pinkerton Detective Agency, and they were going to go battle counterfeiters. And you say that today, and it seems ridiculous. Like, how could that be? Right. But those two missions, from the counterfeit mission, which when I was in the early 2000s was identity theft with mortgage fraud, financial fraud. So it's a more modern version, but there is still counterfeiting. That's still a thing.
Sure.
Plenty of counterfeit cases. But then after President Lincoln was killed, there was no crime for presidential protection. It felt at the time it was too much like a king. We don't want that. That's imperial. We don't want that. President Garfield was assassinated, and then President McKinley was assassinated in 1904. And then each time it built, and then after that, McKinley is vice president, who was then President Teddy Roosevelt, certified historical tough guy, somebody tried to kill him. He had a folded up 50-page speech in his pocket, and that's what stopped the bullet. And after that, they're like, okay, we're gonna do this protection thing full time. And literally, this is before the creation of the FBI. There was the U.S. Marshals, but they were spread across the country, and they said, okay, Secret Service, you're here. Why don't you guys take it? So imagine, for all your viewers listening, if you had a company, that the job was, I do pizza delivery and IT security. Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? But it was literally like, well, you're in the same room. Why don't you guys send some guys over there? So that's how the Secret Service got the protection mission with the counterfeit mission. And it's been a defining factor of it up to this day. But it'd be interesting to see if any of that changes based on what happened. I did an interview last week that I think is on our CBS affiliates about the attack, and there's no shortage of former agents that got asked to try to come out and explain things. But in the shorthand, when you look at the protection side, the service protects the president, vice president, and their spouses and immediate families. They protect former presidents, which is part of what you saw last week. They also protect foreign dignitaries. So I protected Queen of England, which Pope was Benedict at the time, because I got out before Pope Francis became Pope. But kings and queens, presidents and prime ministers from all over the world, even the ones we don't like. They're on American soil. They did a service detail, and I worked almost all of them. And then the last big one that, again, is this discussion for today, is what they call major candidates. That's what the law calls them for the presidency, or nominees for president or vice president. And an example of that wouldn't be former President Trump. He was being protected as a former president, but it would be RFK Jr., who was given a detail the Monday after the assassination attempt. It's something he'd asked for a long time. So just to put kind of a wrapper on how the agency works, I got in 2004, was assigned to the Washington field office. Every office in the Secret Service will tell you how they're the flagship of the Secret Service. We always said we were, we're a couple blocks from the White House, so we could work cases in the morning and go work a presidential site in the afternoon. Or you could go work a big foreign dig for a couple days and then be doing an undercover like the next day. I mean, we worked 3 weeks in a row. Was pretty common every day. I mean, it was all over the place. I loved it. We were all over DC and got to do some foreign travel, see the world with that. But that is after 7 years at the field office, I went to, real briefly, former President Clinton's detail, and then I spent up until the 2012 re-election campaign, I was on President Obama's detail at the White House, which was the peak of that career for me. It was awesome. It was exactly what I was hoping it would be.
Yeah, well, that's it's interesting, talking about the history and how it got started, trying to investigate counterfeiting. When we think about Secret Service right now, all you think about, and even prior to the assassination attempt, all you think about Secret Service is protecting the president, vice president, and foreign dignitaries, etc. So it's interesting how it's transitioned, and that's what people think of right now. And you see him on, even back to Ronald Reagan and his assassination attempt. that's the model of it that everyone thinks of when they think of Secret Service.
Absolutely. And, I talked about, we could take the whole hour, and that's not the point of your podcast, talking about what happened. I would say that the shorthand version for me, and the first thing is people have a lot of questions, and Americans should, right? We had questions after September 11th, and we're kind of at that level of what we're talking about. It went better than it could have. I get that from the historical perspective, but just the failure part of it was a failure. And Americans deserve answers. Why is that? How do we fix it? That's why the director was on board. The good part about that is that the FBI, and this is true since the Warren Commission after President Kennedy was killed, the FBI is the lead agency on investigating attacks on service protectees. So they are well-resourced. They're enormous. Thousands of agents. They got to be 5, 6, 7 times the size of the Secret Service. They're very good, and they will produce a report that if you have read the Warren Commission in school, I guess, if you read the September 11th attack report, the Tower report, if you read when the shovels were destroyed, all of those reports that were put together, those weren't the FBI, the other ones were, it will be that sort of report that get minute detail, what happened, who made decisions and stuff. So we will get answers. I think in the meantime to that, the thing that went on, and another Secret Service agent that I do a separate podcast with, and I'm podcasting with you, we sat down and talked for about 2 hours about it, is that the basic premise is there was a mitigation plan for that roof, that problem. Clearly that failed. There's no argument about that. But that failure and why that plan is in place, I think what people are going to find out had not a lot to do with the people that were there that day, but a lot to do with the people that authorize at higher levels, and I'm talking about service headquarters and Department of Homeland Security, that authorize what levels of resources are used. And, as an agent, I can tell you that it wasn't my call to make. And unfortunately, they get left in a position of saying what you saw running on stage. And that's terrible. And it's terrible for them to have to do that. And it's a lot harder than it looks. I'll tell you. I did it in training, and I didn't like it. So hats off to them as heroes. No
doubt. I mean, it's a daunting task, and they are there to receive the orders and fulfill those orders, not to question them. You don't have time to question the orders. It's not an opportunity to debate with your superior officers. You will see, and I think the report will film, like, and reporting is already showing this, that detail, and I'm not saying specifically one political party or another, the agents, they get assigned to those details. They don't volunteer to protect them. If the president changes, then they'll just protect the next one. But what you will see is that those agents made vigorous requests for good reasons to fix those problems, and my belief is they will be told, don't worry about it. It's good enough. That's what I think you'll see. And I don't have any inside information. I'm just saying from past experience and a little bit what's being reported now. And that's a shame, because it's a tough thing to put somebody in, and then their life is at risk, not the person that said, no, it's good, don't worry about it. That's exactly right. And, the reality is, it seems like the standards continue to become enhanced based on reaction from previous events. So
absolutely, it's like the last war, not the next one. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the mistakes that were made now, I mean, it's important, and I do hope that all the facts come out, all the truth comes out, and it's documented.
I think it will.
Because it's those facts that will protect future protectees. Because
absolutely,
the agency will do things differently because of this, and won't make the same mistakes. They will make other mistakes. I mean, we're human beings. Mistakes happen. It's part of life. But we have to learn from our mistakes and get better. And
absolutely.
I hope, and I'm thrilled that RFK Jr. finally got his protection. I know he's been asking for quite a while.
And over a year. Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, and he was. I mean, not only is he a major candidate for presidency, but with the last name of Kennedy, I mean, he's a Kennedy. And so I just felt it seemed like a natural fit, and I was disappointed that he was denied his request. But I'm glad that he now has protection and he is safe, and I hope that President Trump continues to be safe, and all the other candidates, and we get to. I just want them to get better and safer, because
absolutely,
sadly, there's a lot of not so stable people out there in the world for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think
we'll never know why.
Much like, go ahead.
One. Well, I don't know. We'll never know why he did what he did on that rooftop. We'll never understand the real motive. But the lesson to be learned is there's a lot of people that are unstable, and we need to assume that that's going to happen, and we have to be careful.
Absolutely. And the service protector methodology is based on not really asking the question of why. I talk to a lot of mentally ill people because as agents, we would respond to the White House if somebody showed up and investigate threats and things like that. And as a historical example, John Hinckley that attacked President Reagan, he originally had set out to attack President Carter, and he got scared off that day. And then he came back again and said, okay, no, do it. That just shows that no matter why, and I would say the same thing to all these, all your listeners and viewers that own their own businesses, and I feel like the same way. I think you do too. The responsibility of our success stops at us, and we wouldn't let a customer derail us, right? Or we wouldn't let a supplier say, "Oh, they took our supply and now we're out of business." We wouldn't allow that, and the Secret Service is the same thing. So definitely a failure. I know 3 of the people that were on the stage, and I'm very proud to know them. I'm very proud of what they did. Something I never had to do, and I just think that part should be lauded, and the other part they should figure out, and they will. So I would hope that the people listening, right through the questions, you're going to get an answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
You mentioned a podcast you recorded that was a couple hours long with one of your buddies about this, and if any of our listeners wanted to listen to it, can you share the title of that podcast?
Yeah,
if any of our listeners
wanted to... Federal Agent Storytime, or FAST.
Is that right?
Came up with it. They said every agency's got a team that they abbreviate FAST. Somebody comes up with that name and assigns letters to it. And the idea is we interview different agents about the things that happen in their careers. There are cases, that are just other moving plots. There's no way to make them up. And you really have to work the long hours, be there in the midnights, have the lucky break. So it's kind of true crime, but from the perspective of the agents. And what we're trying to do is this is the story you get over lunch. This is the story you get over a drink when you hear, oh, this one time you're not going to believe it. I'm sure most of them are true. The first guest, we were filming the pilot. John, my partner, is my guest. He's fantastic, and he was going through his story. Then after the attack, he called and said, "Hey, we're all saying and hearing some similar things. Why don't we break that down?" So, Federal Agent Storytime should be coming out to a podcast streamer near you. So hopefully,
all right,
there's a referral right there. We'll make that work.
That's awesome. So our listeners, if you want to hear more about a federal agent story and specifically about the inside scoop, if you will, on the attack on President Trump,
in that first episode we discussed that.
Yeah, Federal Agent Storytime. It's a podcast episode. Okay. So see if you can, get more details, because we don't want to focus. This episode is really not to focus on that so much, but I did want to share that story a little bit.
The times we
background.
Yeah.
But
we do say maybe live in interesting times, and we do. So I think we should address such things.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was just it was timely and appropriate. So I wanted to share that a little bit. I do want to take a quick break here, so we can get our sponsor in, and then come back and continue talking more about open arms instruction. So I want to focus in on that, because I think it's just really important for you to have the opportunity to share that mission and your plan. So I want you to share with our listeners the best way for them to reach out to you. Is it email, phone calls, text?
All of the above. Okay. So my website is www.openarmsinstruction.com. It's all one word, openarmsinstruction.com. You can contact me at Adam at openarmsinstruction.com. And my phone number is 703-772-5814. And if your listeners and viewers do get a chance to go on the website, I'm going to have a page set up for training that I'm looking to do this September in about 6 weeks. So I'm coming into Chicago for some other work, and it would be thinking of a 2-hour block I provide all the stuff if you've never shot before, and then a follow-on 2-hour block if you've shot before with like some advanced training. It would be in the northwest suburbs somewhere. So I'll have information on there. And if not, I would still take, if anyone wants to give a gander to that website, I'll still take any tips or advice anyone has. I appreciate it.
That's great. Okay. So I'll put your phone number, which is 703-772-5814. I'll put that on the screen and in our show notes. And then, and your email is adam@openarmsinstruction.com.
That's great.
And so if you reach out to Adam, make sure you let him know you heard about him here on the I Got a Guide podcast. But let's take a quick break, come back, and continue chatting, learn a little bit more about your new business. So stick with us, and we'll be right back. Thank you for listening to I Got a Guide podcast. I hope you're getting a lot of knowledge from this week's guest. But now a word from our sponsor. If your business uses heavy equipment as part of its daily routine, sadly, I don't need to educate you on the reality that this equipment has been the focus of many local thieves either. Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions works with business owners that own commercial vehicles and heavy equipment. We help these business owners enhance their growth and profit through the use of GPS tracking technology. Recovering a stolen asset is just one way we contribute to the bottom line of the business. Our GPS tracking units used in heavy equipment are weather tight so they can handle the elements and even have an internal battery to continue to report its location should the battery in the asset be disconnected. We have several examples of the benefits of GPS tracking in heavy equipment. Reach out to Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions for a detailed discussion about our options and to see if it makes sense for your business. You can find Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions at precisefleettracking.com. That's precisefleettracking.com. Or call us at 847-865-6008. Precise Fleet Tracking Solutions. GPS tracking made simple. Now, back to the show. Okay, we are back. I am Michael Drellichars, host of I Got a Guide podcast. We are visiting today with Adam Metcalf. He is the owner of Open Arms Instruction, also a former law enforcement professional with Department of Justice and Secret Service and Postal Service, you said, right? And our Air Force member, and appreciate your service.
Thank you.
Love that all you've done for our country. We really do appreciate that. I didn't say it earlier, but I do want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
You know, we talked before the break a lot about Secret Service and about your background, but I want to focus on this part of the episode on open arms instruction. Tell us about how you're helping people, whether they want to embrace their Second Amendment rights, they want to learn how to protect themselves if they want to get into competitive shooting, etc. Kind of go through some of that detail, if you would.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. I think I said this earlier, but I have people come to me from all different backgrounds. Some people want to defend themselves. Some people see firearms as a sport. I compete in pistol competitions. Some people want to know safety because they say, I know fire safety, I know, first aid, I want to know safety about this. And then, like I said, law enforcement agents, and some law enforcement agents, and I'm talking about uniformed officers or plainclothes federal agents, to them, a gun is a tool like anything else, and some people treat it as something they get tested on a couple times a year, and that's it. Some people have more specialized roles. So there really is a diverse mind, not just ages, not just men and women, not just ethnic backgrounds, but there's a diversity of interests in the people I teach, and I think that's cool because that gives me strength and that makes me think in a broader sense. Now, after I left the Secret Service, I went to the Department of Justice. And that's where I mentioned the idea of an inspector general, kind of an oversight for a different agency. And at DOJ, we were the inspector general for the department, 110,000 employees. And the biggest source of our cases was correctional officers, the federal prisons, the officers that run the prisons. So we were in and out of a lot of federal prisons, which is not nice. It's just, I doubt many people on your podcast have the experience, which is a good thing. But one of the things that I got to do there was to be set to be a firearms instructor. And it was something I was always interested in. I'd been competing and I'd been interested. I had, like I said, a lot of training, but was never getting any better. And when I went to be an instructor, it was a struggle for me to even pass the initial qualification, which is not that demanding, but you have to have a certain level. Anybody can do a training, but I had to really work to do it. And I think that is something I still carry with me because That class, which was extremely well done, 2 weeks down in Glencoe, Georgia, which is an old Navy base, St. Simon's Island, was to teach us the fundamentals of a task, in this case, shooting. But then how do you teach it to somebody else? So that circles back to what I said about being in the Air Force. And I had that in the back of my brain. Okay, I've never really looked at this task and said, well, how do you do it? I mean, I knew what I did, but how do you do it, and how do you get better? How do you identify deficiencies? How do you do that? And that's what I bring when customers come to me with their diverse backgrounds and their diverse goals. I say, okay, let's shorten this time it's going to take you to get where you want to go, because it turns out there are concepts that work. And to me, it's the same thing that your viewers and listeners do with their businesses, right? There are time-tested things in business that have value. You talked about the 5 laws. Now we're doing authenticity, value. Now these are ways that we run referral businesses. And so if we stick with those things, we do really well. And when you can show that to somebody, what a strength, what a power it is for them and for me, that they can get to where they want to be quicker. And it's really awesome. So I took that idea of how do you do this? I used to run a match where it's a pistol match. It's called International Defensive Pistol Association. IDPA is the letters, and IDPA.com. And it's one of the 2 big sports, pistol sports here in the United States. Very popular in that small subset. And I ran a match that grew up to 100 competitors every month. We started with 30, and then when I was done, we'd have 100 competitors a month, and we had 30 safety officers running them. So more safety officers than we originally had people showing up, right? So it was really fantastic. We doubled the percentage of female shooters, got new people in from all over the place, and it was a safe environment. We shoot 70,000 rounds a year with no incidents because of how we train safety and how we control it. And that's not by chance. Those numbers are too high to be by chance. And so one of the interesting things about being a match director that applied to starting Open Arms really was the genesis of the company, was that I would design the stages, which is like a hole of golf. If the holes of golf changed every month, basically you do something. It's shooting tasks, if you will. And I'd be kind of making the match go around and there was safety officers at each hole, at each stage. And somebody would stop me, a friend of mine I'd known that was a good veteran, and say, "This is great, man. Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for coming to ask us." But my only question people say to me is, "This is the test. How do I study for the test?" And I would say, "I gotta tell you, man, I gotta get this water down here." And then they ran out of staples over there, and all the targets set up on the bay. So I was just the logistics. But when I stepped down from being that match director, I kept thinking on the question, how do I study for the test? And that kind of merged with me being a firearms instructor, me being interested in that, and me being interested in my own improvement. So, okay, you're not at the level you want to be. How do you want to get better? And that person just asked you how to get better too. It sounds like we may have a burger people want to eat at the restaurant. Maybe we should open something up. So that's the genesis of how this started. So at first, I really didn't know that idea, but once it took hold of, I wanted to become the instructor I never had. I had plenty of instructors, great instructors, but they weren't the kind of person that I could go to repeatedly. I could go to, with the same paradigm of teaching every time. They knew me. I was comfortable going back. I knew it was safe. I knew it was a good value. So I kind of created that. I'm wondering, just saying it, how many people listening to or watching this podcast started their company because they said, there's a hole in the market. I want the service. I'm going to give it. No one else. I'm going to give it to you. Right. And that's how this started. And so for me, then I had to really, again, as an instructor, drop back and say, all right, well, smart guy, how do you do this? And it got really exciting because it would be great to chart how my personal skill improved as my training improved. Because I wasn't just explaining it to my students, I was explaining it to myself. And that's something I say all the time. I just taught on Saturday night. I do a training match. And you don't see it much. Usually people are going to classes to learn or they're competing. So you're either going to golf or you're going to the golf pro, basically. Those are your two things. Well, this is if the golf pro followed you around through the 18 holes, basically. Because there's a lot to learn on the fly. And sometimes in competition, there's so much going on. Think of a football game. If you had to learn football by watching a game or playing it, or just so much going on, things like, I don't know, about halfway through, I lost track of the whole thing. So we kind of break that down. And one of the things I'll do, usually groups of 5 or 6 during the competition, and I'll say, if someone does something, I'll say, hey, remember we talked about this with body position with your grip, what have you. And I'll always say to people, when I say something to this person, I'm not just saying it to them. I'm saying it to me. Because I'll tell you right now, I'm working on it. I'm saying the rest of us because we're all doing the same. And you see people kind of shake their head like, all right, we're in this together. And that to me is the strength of what I'm trying to do, because it's not a guru, it's not a holier than that. My performance certainly does not show that. If it was, there would be no value in coming out. But if I say something, it can't be because, well, Adam said do it because it works for him. It's got to be because it works for you. Or why would you do it? Because it's not me that's doing it. And once I kind of got to that, it really created a product that people are really coming back for, that are really glued to. I'm very proud of that, and it makes me excited. I think I told you before we started, I'm going out to West Virginia this weekend to do 2 full days of training, 4 classes over 2 full days. And it's invigorating. I can't wait. It's like it's the beginning of the week. It's like Christmas is coming, because I know how effective the product will be, because that's the product I've given before. But also, I want to learn. I want to go to it. I want to benefit from the backside. So that's where it really, I don't know, that's where my motivation comes from. I'm sure all of your viewers and listeners, it's a livelihood, right? We're all in business, but all of us have those things that get us up out of bed. Freddie, you were up early this morning to go do an install on the south side. So something is saying to you, hey, we got to get this. I know if I do it this way, we're going to hit a home run. And that feeling is there. I love it. Keeps me going.
Right. You know, thinking about these firearm classes, a few months back, I went through the concealed carry class myself.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I did it for a number of reasons. But what I was not expecting was the class is so much focused on, you know, not only safety, but your surroundings, personal safety, and I don't remember all the terms.
Absolutely.
But there was, I mean, in Illinois, they require 16 hours to be certified with concealed carry. And originally I thought, well, you know, that's probably rounded up, and, you know, we'll probably be out of there.
Take a lot of breaks.
Yeah, and I really thought it was a lot of cushion in there. But, you know, we actually went more than 16 hours because there were questions throughout the class.
Good.
And it was really productive. And we did it over 2 days. It was 2 8-hour days. And it was just, it was so much really concrete information shared that is just, some of it actually is like, well, yeah, it's common sense, except the common person doesn't think about it that way.
Right.
And so there was one gentleman in the class who said he never intended to carry a weapon. He just wanted to learn the laws, right, what you can and can't do, what we should and shouldn't do, and learn some safety tips. And I really think that's something that I totally glossed over. I was focused on getting my concealed carry license, just, you know, and when I realized the bigger picture, I'm like, holy cow, I'm really thankful that I did this, because you know, in having that knowledge is power. And
absolutely,
when you're talking about something as black and white as, you know, safety and handgun safety and all things that could go wrong, that, you know, and if it goes wrong, it could be catastrophic. And you know, somebody's don't get a second chance. And so it's just so important to have the foundation. And I think everybody should learn these fundamentals. And we can
do two right now. I feel like we'll give you a free class for your listeners and your viewers. I think you guys are like, no coupon required. You tuned in, you're all set. So
there you go.
As you said, Mike, about awareness, and that is true of concealed carry training. A lot of it's about awareness, legal, safety, things like that. So 2 things I'll clear to you. If you have, I lived in Manhattan for 3 years. And I grew up in the burbs, right? So we lived in Chicago. We were down in Chicago. And I lived downtown right on Wall Street for 3 years, right before COVID. And one of the things that we did is we never got on our cell phone when we were on the street. Because as soon as you get on your cell phone, your head goes down, right? Especially as we get older, we're trying to find where we can read the screen. Your head goes down and you lose about 70% of the world. You've ever been bumped into somebody that was looking at their cell phone or you were looking at it? That's because how quickly you can drop out your perception.
Yes.
So what I would throw to the people listening or watching is, then you say, well, geez, every once in a while, man, I got to take this call, I got to put this text, I got to ask Google, where am I? I'm walking around, I can't find anything. So my recommendation is twofold. One, I hold the phone like this when I'm in the street, so that it's...
So you keep your head up.
Hold it. Keep my head up for our listeners so that it's at eye level, because if you hold it down where we normally do, where we're looking down, then your world is down. You hold it up at eye level, you look a little funny. It's almost like you're trying to see something in the sun. Now you can see so much more of the world. The other thing is, put your back to something. So instead of standing on the street corner looking at that phone, I would just back up to the street, the sign behind me, the brick building behind me. Well, now 180 degrees of the world goes away. You're only worried about what's in front of you. So right there, you guys can do something quick to help your safety if you're walking around working. If you realtors, right, there, maybe you're taking a call while they're showing someone house, they want to keep track of what they're doing. Put your back to a wall, you cut the world in half. The other thing I would say is we play a game called I Saw You First. It's like I Got a Guy, the sequel. And I Saw You First is just that. If you've ever been walking along and somebody you know came up and started and said, oh, it's great to see you, before you saw them, well, then you lost that game.
Yes.
If you see other people and you say, oh, hey, Mitch, it's me, it's great to see you, that means you're out. Your vision is out. You're forward thinking, you're out looking. If someone can get close enough to you that they know you and startle you like that, what else could they do? Not that Mitch is a bad guy, Mitch is a great guy. But that way, if you think in terms of, I want to recognize the world before it recognizes me, so I'd say to your viewers and your listeners, take those two things home. See it in yourself. When do I put my head down, put my back up against the wall if I have to get my interest? And then also, let me see the next time somebody catches me, if I can catch them first. And that will greatly put their situational awareness out in business, life, driving a car, what have you.
Right. Yeah, because obviously you're not concerned about the person that you know, but it's if your eyes are down and you're not noticing people you know,
it keeps you thinking out. Yes.
The people you don't know, that could be the concern. And so
try the next time you and I got to do it. And when I get to meet your listeners, if they come out the train, all right, I got to make sure that they're not sneaking up on me. I got to have my antenna looking out. And if nothing else, just shake a hand and say, hey, great to meet you. Thanks for coming out. And that's what all of your business people want to do. So same idea.
Right. That's exactly right. It's important to, but that kind of stuff is just really, it's good sage advice, I think, just to be safer in our world. It has nothing
to do with a weapon. Yeah.
I just what you took it out of my mouth. It had nothing to do with the handgun, whether you carry a weapon or not. It's nothing to do with that. It's just about being safer. When you're getting gas in your vehicle, when you're walking down the street, when you're going into a restaurant, it's just it makes a lot of sense.
Makes you more, and I think again, one of the things to kind of close out that Secret Service discussion of being beholden to someone else making the decisions. My joke now is I'm my own idiot boss, so success or failure is all on me. But one of the things I wanted to do is I want to live by my decisions. Right? If I say, hey, spend time recording podcasts with Mike Asvalio, we're doing. I don't have to ask up the chain or anything. Well, I think the same thing with business. If you walk into your restaurant or your place of business, just last night, we got to the host stand and addressed the host before they talked to us. So is that how we want to feel going in? No, right? We want to be welcomed to places.
Right.
So I think it applies, like you said, has nothing to do with defending yourself. It's more about how do we approach things. And my guess is people that listen to a podcast or watch podcasts like this regularly are thinking like that already. Because they say, I'm not being the person that's like that. You come to my business, you get treated right. Here's how I do it. So that's why I love talking to you guys, because I wanted to, when I retired a couple months ago, I wanted to have the ability to do it myself. Well, okay, what are you going to bring to the table? And that's where it is. It's interesting. For people that have not trained before, I think it might seem like, what do you do? So I have 1, 2, and 4 hour formats, which goes by pretty quick. And I do have on Sunday some intrepid students who will take a 2-hour and a 4-hour class together, and I will warn them, I do write the jokes in beforehand, and sometimes I repeat them because I get confused on which setting I'm in, so I might say the same thing twice. So far, everybody laughs. So far, we're good. But most people are like, yeah, I think you talked that once already. But what we do is we start with a safety brief every time. Like I said about that match, safety is not an accident. I mean, everybody drove, right? Probably to work today. Might be listening to a podcast right now. Hopefully not walking though. So keep in mind. But when you drive year after year, if you do it safely, it's not an accident. It's because of the things you do. And that's the same thing in a training environment, whether it's training for a marathon or you warm up properly, start there afterwards, firearms training. I've been doing a lot of defensive training. It's because of the fundamentals you laid down. So the goals after the safety brief is safely learn and have fun. That's every class. We always have the same goals. We brief safety because there's nothing worth saying. There's nothing so fascinating about my teaching that somebody getting hurt or destroying something is worth it. But that's the equation. It's just not worth it. So we have to, first and foremost, be safe. And I talk about how to do that. But we got to learn something. Because it's a hoot and everybody has a good time. But I would hate for somebody to drive home for 6 hours of training, call a buddy, and say, hey, what did you do today? Well, I went out in the woods with this crazy guy. Well, what'd you learn? Nothing. That person's not coming back, you know? Right. If you had your business and I said, I spent the day with Mike, I paid him money, I got nothing. They're not coming back. So you safely learn. There's got to be some product to it. I'm very proud of that. And the last thing is have fun. And I wonder how many of your business owners, of your audience, I believe we do it with passion. We're coming into this because we want to do it like be the instructor we always wanted. But sometimes I get so into the logistics that I think, well, we're supposed to be fun, right? I mean, if this is somebody's off-duty time, their free time, and they're coming on a Saturday, like we got to attend Saturday night this past weekend, you can go do other fun stuff on Saturday night. So it better be entertaining. It better be all of those things. So safely learn and have fun on goals. Once we do that, we do our agenda, depending on the 1, 2, or 4 hour class. A 1 hour class is pretty quick. And so you only get a couple big topics, and that's kind of a sampler platter. There'll be a theme for the day. I give people a couple things. We practice it a little bit, and by the time it gets going, it's over. And people say, are we done? Yeah, man. Come back another time. Sally, come back. You'll love it. We'll come back another time. Most of what I talk about when we get into the 2 hour classes is we take those small digestible concepts and we broaden them out a little bit. We give you a little more repetition. We give you a little more variation and nuance. It's almost like if we only taught you how to turn left in a 1 hour class, or let's turn right. Let's do it a little faster speed, or let's take a different incline on the turn. We have a little more time to play with. And then a 4 hour class, and this might just be my attention span, a 4 hour class is about all this kid's good for before he needs a serious break. So I think we do take breaks throughout, but a 4 hour class is the ability to talk about a full concept with repetition and really give you something to go home with and saying, like, I'm only 4 hours smarter than I was before, but I've got things, digestible things that I can chew on and take home. And so we go through these things every time. My focus is on, we talked about the fundamentals of business, right, and how that applies to the people that are listening or watching. I talk about those fundamentals all the time because they don't change, and without them, we won't be successful. Right. I'm a professional football fan. You guys got a lot of interesting players this year for the Bears. It'll be interesting to see how Chicago does this year. Absolutely. But if they apply their fundamentals, they get the result they want. If they don't, they don't. That's why training camp starts and these champion players are all working on their footwork. They've had hundreds of thousands of reps, and they're still trying to, my pinky's too far to the right, my toe wasn't pointing in the right place when I throw the ball. They're still doing it because they still want to compete. They still want to be champions. So we work on that. And then the big thing I preach again and again, and it's funny when you hear the words, is consistency and efficiency. I think about the logistics of the business, of the people you work with. You are in a shipping business, right? You work in a business of moving things around. If you are consistent in your application, then you don't have to come up with a plan every time. If you're efficient, then you go in the straightest line, which is the cheapest and gives the most value. That sounds like business, right? Well, it turns out it's the same thing in the shooting sports. And so again and again, I'll say to someone, maybe it's a movement. As an example, I've been shrugging my shoulders, and we watched it on slow motion video, and it doesn't make me any faster on a timed sport. So I'm going to stop shrugging my shoulders. I didn't know it until I was on video, but now I got something to work on. So even little things like that, and my guess is people that are listening or watching every day see something like, as an example, a friend of mine runs a restaurant chain, very successful. I went to an opening, and I was sitting with one of his friends who's a consultant who was down from New York for the opening, soft opening, work the kitchen and get the kinks out and stuff. And I said, what's your background? Are you restaurant background? He said, no, I'm IT. I said, that's very interesting. He says, oh, it's all the same. I said, what do you mean? He goes, you got a project, you limited resources, we got to get a goal, right? And he said, in IT, we have to fix a bug, and we had that huge outage. CrowdStrike was on Friday, a couple days ago, with the airline system still getting untangled. He said it's the same thing here. If I walk into a restaurant that's new, and every time somebody orders soup, that waiter has to walk in the back of the kitchen and get a spoon, I'm going to tell the owner, what's that guy doing? Move the spoons up here. Now, you don't have to be a restaurant person to see that, but my guess is your listeners and your viewers do that every day, where they say, I have to put in 3 passwords to get the same thing, or this system we use to produce this takes 2 times the time, which is 2 times the cost. And so that same concept, that's why I'm very interested and keen to work with your audience if they're interested in any of the training, because my guess is we're all going to approach this the same way, and I'm going to learn as much from them, which I always do, as they would from me, focusing on the consistency and efficiency. Yeah,
those are 2 really important points, obviously, from a standpoint of, you think about, some of these big name brands, businesses, McDonald's, their hamburgers are consistent. You eat a McDonald's hamburger anywhere in the world, it tastes the same because it's completely
yeah,
right,
absolutely.
And efficiency, that's how you can generate some profit, because you're doing it more efficiently. You always have to fine tune that, and it's an evolution. But as a business owner, you have to pay attention to those nuances.
You did an install today, right? If it took you 2 days to do what you could do in 1 day, you made half the amount of money. If in the future you could do it in a third of a day, profits would. It's the same discussion. It's so crazy. Of what I have when I train, the same discussion you guys have. Yeah, absolutely. And that's before the business part of it. That's the funny part.
That's exactly right. But you correlate that to shooting, and not only if you can be consistent, you'll become more accurate, and you'll increase your confidence, and you'll increase your safety.
It floats all boats. It floats all boats. You're exactly right.
It's so connected. Logically, it's so connected.
Absolutely. That's what I like, and that's since I retired from federal service and became a full-time solopreneur. If that's a real word, I've heard it, so I'm going to use it like it's a real word. I see all these things interconnecting, and now I'm talking to people about marketing. I talked to you about that, about the online presence, all these things that before I was kind of shrugged, as a government answer, I don't know, stuff every 2 weeks, the paycheck shows up, I don't know what to tell you. Well, now you say, okay, how do I do that? And that part is fascinating. And to see how a lot of my students are, you bump into somebody at the range, and I teach indoor, I teach outdoor, but people have eye protection on, they have the hard shell hearing protection, t-shirt and cargo shorts and boots or whatever, and you think, I don't know who this guy is. And then you get a text from a man or woman that the subject line in their email is CTO of this company or founder and president. It's like, I thought that guy lived in his car. And so then it's interesting, since I retired and started my website, started business cards and stuff, and started talking to people. People have put me up. One of my students have had a long conversation. He's an IT security guy. And he said, hey, thanks for the class. I really appreciate it. He says, not for nothing, I was looking at your website. Here's what I'm thinking. And that was very technical. I was like, please tell me what to type. So I love that synergy, and then it does tie back to how I teach and to what we teach. And the students have been, like I said, teaching me that. It's incredible.
And you're going to find as you talk to more business owners and people, maybe not even business owners, but business executives, when they can appreciate the passion that you put behind your craft, they're going to take their skills and their passion and want to help you be even better. Not necessarily at the shooting aspect, but another aspect that you may not be strong at, because almost every one of us business owners we have our strengths and our weaknesses, and we can't be a master of everything. My strength is sales. My weakness is some of the back office stuff. So I have to either outsource it or get some expertise from somebody that is better at that aspect. And
a little bit, yeah.
So when we think about networking, I use our networking groups not only to grow my business and get referrals, but also almost like an advisory board or a board of directors, where you get some input from people that have, maybe more experience, maybe not even more experience, but different experiences and different contexts. And I had this kind of problem. I had a similar problem that you had. I had this 2 years ago, and this is how I fixed it. And then you can kind of piece it together and come up with a better solution. And it's amazing the kind of ideas and the solutions that you can come up with by having a sounding board like that.
I love it, especially if my first thought was, I want to do this myself, succeed or fail by myself, and I'm like, well, I don't have all the answers. So you remind me of something. Right before I left, I was a program manager. We had roughly 500 agents and 600,000 postal employees that we were launching. So those are good numbers, right? That's like a good government job. And sure. I was in charge with my partner with what we call threat management. It was anything that an agent could use to defend themselves, their partners, postal employees, or the public. So we firearms, body armor, ammunition, tactical, medical, and we started the de-escalation program or the conflict resolution program. And we did it by going to a fantastic company called Dolan Consulting Group that had been in the business. Chief Dolan's about 9 feet tall, and he tells you how to speak to people. So it's really easy when you're 9 feet tall. But it was amazing how he used the art of persuasion, 2,000-year-old concept, Aristotle, to communicate and persuade people to what you might need to be done on the job. Well, when we went to vet the course, because I knew nothing about it. When we first heard about it, we started talking about, we got a hole in our doing, we need to fill it. I knew nothing about it. So we went to vet the course, and we sent a co-op, actually, that found it. We said, you go take the course. Come back. He's like, it's great. I'm like, what do you know? I said, we're going to send 10 of us are going to go take it. My partner and I, we'll get some instructors from the field. We'll go take it, and if it's good, we'll bring it back, and we'll go roll out for the entire group. But one of the things we did is, in an inspector general office, about half the people that work there are auditors. They're not agents. They're totally compliance auditors. They are like CPAs and auditors, as you would think in the business sense. And they write reports on, big things. Postal service, you charge this for a stamp, and your sales went down. If you charge this, it would go up. So that kind of auditing. So we asked the audit side, we said, hey, do you have a volunteer to come with us and go take this training? And they said, why? We said, we want another set of eyes. What if all of us go and we all nod? Yeah, let's go. It sounds good to me. Yeah, I've heard it before. Well, I want somebody else from the outside to say, well, sure. Where's that from? I never heard that before. And the coolest part about it was all 10 of us came back and said thumbs up. And it's been a home run success. It really has. But when we talked to that auditor, she said, I'm using this as well in the office. And that's what dawned on us. The stuff we thought was street, I'm making air quotes for your listeners, or tactical use or talking to a subject of an interview or something, between talking to your partners at work, between talking to your family, your neighbors, it was conflict resolution, how we go through life. So why wouldn't we bring somebody else? So I don't mean like too long of a story, but it was just one of those things that I now in the back of my mind is that if we're all looking one way saying, and if it's just me, saying this is the greatest idea I've ever heard, I'm going to go ask somebody else. And the furthest they are from the problem, the better. Because then maybe they go, I think you're crazy. They tell me something I never thought of. That's what I'm looking for. And I do that even with my instructing. I am in classes until I encourage my students to take classes from other instructors. And some people think that's funny. I think it's very natural. But the thing I tell them that really shocks people is I said, if you go and you hear something, if you leave and you go to an instructor that says everything Adam taught you is wrong, do it this way instead, and it turns out to be better, come back and tell me, and I'll change. That's all I want. It's not about me. If somebody has that better mousetrap and I'm missing it, and I did it about a month ago. I went and took a 3-day class up in Jersey from an instructor I'd taken before. It's very good. And when I came out, I said, hey, he's got better stuff. Why aren't we all doing it? So let's go that way until the next person says they've got better stuff, et cetera, et cetera. That's how we get better. And when I think of your law of authenticity, I'm the only instructor we have on staff, and I hope it stays that way forever. Because some places are training staff, so they contract out. And I'm not saying that's bad. Some excellent instructors out there. But one of the things my students know is they're dealing with me. I know them. I know when I was there last time, I'll be the one that's there next time. And I go out and I learn from these places, and I aggregate it, and I translate it back down so they don't have to give them what I can, the best current version, what I can find. And I hope every year I change and get better, because I don't think I'm ever going to be at the end of the line and go, that's it, kids. That's the best. It's the best football player we've ever run. It's the best business we've ever done. There's always going to be somebody doing it better. And my hope is that I'm able to stick with that and give that to people, because I think that's a lot of what my customers are paying for.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's my personal view is that's the exact right way to run a business. I do the same thing in my own business. I am, I touch every one of my customers. I know my customers. I don't want to be the biggest. I just want to be the best at what we do. And I believe we do a tremendous job, and our loyalty is through the roof. And we have, but when a mistake happens, the first thing I do is I stand in front of the mistake and I take ownership for it. And like, Absolutely. We're going to fix this. And you're in, and it's only happened a couple times, fortunately, in the last 5.5 years, but I feel like this is the right thing to do. And then we take that lesson and we roll it in, like we talked about with the Secret Service. We take that mistake and like, all right, well, let's not make this mistake again, because it gets expensive to repair these things, but you have to go back. You can't bury your head in the sand and say, oh, well, forget that one. It doesn't matter. It all matters. And it could be the simplest thing. When you created Open Arms, that's your name behind that brand. You have there's pride that goes with that, and you don't want anything to tarnish that. So if you outsource that now to a bunch of instructors that don't have the same passion, it could dilute the value of your brand.
Exactly.
And then where are you? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So
talk about. Are you talking about success stories? It's one of the things I like on your podcast is, okay, all right, show me where it worked. Right? Like, if you've got all this stuff, show me one. I wanted to share one with you guys quick. I
please.
work with a lady. She's a school teacher, so she's tough, because you have to be tough to teach second graders. They're tough. I wouldn't mess with them. So she's got the right attitude for it. Her husband is a former Marine. I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah, he's still a Marine, because they're always still Marines. They get very touchy when you say used to be a Marine. But he's a former Marine, so she's been around guns, and they like to compete. And I think it's something she came to support him to competitions and wants it, and kind of says, it's kind of cool. I could do this. And they agreed that for the safety of the marriage, they would not teach each other, because some couples will say, perhaps this is not the right thing to do, right? If you try to teach your kids how to drive and it's them in driver's ed, it's the same mentality, right? Sometimes it's better to get somebody else in. So it's very humbled that I had known the husband, and he came to me and said, can you continue to get fired? Well, I'm starting this thing up. Let's get together. So they worked together as a team, and she worked individually, practicing a lot of instruction over maybe a year, and by a lot, I mean less than monthly. So maybe one miss a month, come back the next month, so maybe 10, 12 times total. But she got to the point where she was thinking about in the car driving, like, he said this, and I don't get that. I got to ask him that question. And she's okay, I tried this, and it didn't work for me. It worked for him. What are we looking at here? We train together groups and stuff some of the time. And after about a year and a half, we were at it's beautiful. It's called Echo Valley Training Center in West Virginia, which is where I'm going this weekend. And it's, I don't know how many acres of woods. It's really cool. And we were doing some drill where there's about 8 or 10 students in a line, and they're all facing towards where it's safe to fire. And I'm on the one side, and I'm looking down the line for safety and for instruction. And she was on the far end. She liked the spot in the end. She could be by herself, and she's very safe in how she handles it. Well, I was actually watching her. I was looking past 10 people to watch her. Because some people, when you stand right behind them, then they didn't look at you. So I was just glancing down to see. And we're doing a very simple drill where it was based on accuracy, not speed. And she did very well. And one round was, a millimeter outside where it was supposed to be. It was just, you had to squint to see it, right? And I kind of saw it, and I'm looking on the spot, and I kind of saw it. Well, I see the round, I'm like, oh, okay. And I see her face, and the look on her face was of such utter disgust at her performance. This is after a year and a half, and she's barely off this. And so we get done with that drill, and we go back to load magazines for our next iteration, and I spilled up, and I said, hey, I'm going to introduce you to somebody. And she said, who? And I said, you, from 2 years ago. And she said, why? And I said, because you from 2 years ago would be shocked at what disappoints you now. And she laughed, and she said, you're right. She said, look, 2 years ago I didn't know, and my performance showed it. She said, now I know, and I want it. So when I don't get it, I know, and I'm mad about it. I said, all right, let's work together, and let's take a step forward. But I was so and I was happy for she did the work. I mean, I didn't do all that practice. I wasn't the one driving in the car thinking like, it's not working for me. How do I do this? And she did it and really got the result. And that made me better, right? And because it made me go back and say, well, I better pay attention for my own skill set. But it also made me happy to say, okay, if you string it all together, I guess you get the results you're looking for. So just to throw that out, it's one of my moments of pride for that.
Yeah, well, that's a great story, and it's awesome to watch her evolve in her skill set.
Yeah, great word. She did.
Yeah, that's great. Well, it's I love talking with you and sharing these stories, and I love the passion in what you do. So I'm hoping our listeners are also enjoying that. Why don't you share again your contact information? If anybody has any questions, whether they may not live in the DC area, but they may have a question, they can reach out to you with an email. Love for them to do that. So why don't you share how they can reach you again?
Well, to start with, that podcast is called Federal Agent Storytime. Can be coming to a streaming service near you. And then for Open Arms, the website is www.openarmsinstruction.com. My email is adam@openarmsinstruction.com. Or you can text or call me at 703-772-5814. And I would like nothing better to hear from your audience. And I'm sure if I can answer a question for them, I'm sure they will tell me something about business that I can take away. And then, like I said, I'm looking to teach September 2024 in about 6 weeks from our taping here. I have probably 2 classes in the northwest suburbs. And if anyone's interested, the website will have that information. Or if they want to give me their contact information, I'll circle back with them to see if they want to come out and train, which I think would be awesome. I've trained in Chicago before with a couple good choices of ranges, but it's always nice to go home and to see some people from where you're from.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, that's tremendous, and I will try to take you up on that. Hopefully, my calendar is available.
Yeah, you're coming with. You're definitely coming with.
I'll be there. I know we got one trip in Maine latter part of September, but I'm hoping we'll be home in town here when you're in town.
That would be great,
and catch up face to face as well. Anything else you want to share with our audience before we wrap up today?
No, I want to say thanks to everybody, and I think the more I talk about it, now I want to go back and do more, and I just appreciate the opportunity. And if I can come back in the future, I feel like, although I've been doing this for 5 years, I'm really just doing it full time, standing on my feet now. So I'd love to come back at some point, maybe before training I'm planning in 2025 in the Chicago area. Talk to you about that, talk to you about how things have changed, and also, no doubt, what you guys have taught me in the meantime. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, you're always welcome, and that would be great. And if we'll definitely keep you included and have you on with some. We'll find a regular interval for you to participate. And
I'm going to get sick of me.
Yeah, no, I don't know about that, but we'll have you on as often as we can, and learn more about how you're growing and how your business is evolving, and how our listeners are evolving. So that's awesome.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Cool. So let me throw a quick little plug in for Precise Fleet Tracking, because that's my day job, and it's how we pay the bills around here. This I Got a Guy podcast is a passion of mine. It's my way of giving back to small businesses to help small businesses grow, because I really believe that small businesses are the foundation of our economy and the foundation of our country. And I think it's important that we support small businesses wherever we can, in any way we can. And so I do always encourage our listeners to support all of our guests. And not only are they experts in their field, but support their business and help them grow, and we'll all be better because of it. But Precise Fleet Tracking is my primary focus every day. And we work with business owners that own commercial vehicles. And whether it's a landscaping company, a plumbing company, a roofing company, or even a delivery company, if you have a vehicle with a logo on the outside of your vehicle, we believe you should have a tracking unit inside the vehicle. Know how that vehicle is being driven. And help the driver be safer. Every safe driver on the road is safer for everybody around us. And as a business owner, you know what's going on with your vehicles. These are expensive assets, and they're rolling billboards of your business. So you want to know that they're being driven properly and they serve your customers well and help you grow your business. So if you happen to fit that mold, if you have assets and vehicles like this, we would love to have a conversation with you. You can reach out to Precise Fleet Tracking through our website, which is precisefleettracking.com. That's precisefleettracking.com, or call us at 847-865-6008. It's 847-865-6008. Let's have a conversation and see if it's a fit. No obligation. Just have a conversation. It's a great way to get started. So, all right. Well, thank you for letting me do that. And so, Adam, again, thanks for participating. Love your energy, your passion, and again, thank you for your service to our country, because we really need that.
Thanks, everybody. I'll see you on the range.
We will see you there soon. And to our listeners, thank you for participating again this week, and make it a great week. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Thank you for listening to I Got a Guy podcast. For past podcasts and more information, go to igotaguypodcast.com. That's igotaguypodcast.com. Please share this podcast on your social media feeds, and tune in again next week to I Got a Guy podcast.